Sachs. It is the fourth and final day of the Republican National Convention and our last time here bringing you this live stream. And obviously the big thing tonight is going to be the speech from former President and now candidate Trump.
Yes, it's been a good day here. I think it's been wonderful weather. We've seen a lot of people out and about here outside Fiserv Forum and also over by the convention areas. But I think overall people had a pretty good stretch of time here these last 4 days.
And I think you can feel the energy has really built. Each day it's gotten earlier. Last night with J.D. Vance giving his acceptance speech, there was a lot of energy. And now knowing that it is Donald Trump's night to speak, there's a lot more activity out here on the plaza than there has been at this time of day all week long. We have been bumping into people left and right that we've talked to, and one of the people we're going to introduce you to is from the state of New York. Is that right?
Yes, we met him out here outside of Fiserv Forum, and we were interested in how he thought Milwaukee was doing this week, because obviously we know how much preparation went into these 4 days. A lot of money was spent, a lot of promotion was done, and we asked him, how are we doing? How do you think Milwaukee did this week?
I think they've done a terrific job. It's extremely well organized. The people are incredibly friendly. You have so many volunteers who gave up their valuable time to help with the convention. And we've had a lot of interaction with a lot of those volunteers. They've just been so helpful to me and my staff. And I got to tell you, the weather, you name it, the food, we've eaten at your local restaurants. They've done a great job, and we're looking forward to another night of hospitality here in Milwaukee.
What are your highlights looking back on the last 4 days?
I think it was the Gold Star mothers last night, telling their story about their children who, gave up their lives for service in our American military, and the fact that Donald Trump really embraced them when Joe Biden didn't at all. So that was a very poignant moment. I think everybody was emotional, and of course the Israeli hostage, Omer Nutra, who's an American citizen, his parents got up to speak. And J.D. Vance gave a great speech last night. You can tell why he's a leader and why President Trump picked him to be the vice presidential nominee, because he's a solid guy with a very, very interesting and compelling background. So, but again, I just want to say to the people of Milwaukee, you've done an amazing job. I think the Republican National Committee was very wise to come here, and your people are awesome, very kind, very helpful, and it doesn't matter what their politics are. They just want to put Milwaukee's best foot forward, and they have in a big way. I'm going to come back to visit with my family because I was so impressed with this community.
Well, thank you for saying that. Is there anything you were able to do outside the perimeter? You said you went to some restaurants. Were you able to do any sightseeing, or was it mostly taken up by convention activities?
Yeah, we're doing a little sightseeing. We're helping the local economy. We're spending some money at the shopping mall. Some of our people have gone out and experienced some of your better golf courses here in Milwaukee. This afternoon, I'm going to go to one of your parks and take a nice walk. And the restaurants are really, really good. We ate at Carson's last night. That was delicious. Very, very good food, and the service was great. Especially we had 70 people there, so it was hard serving 70 people, but they did an outstanding job. And I think we're going to try Calderone tonight. We hear that's a good Italian restaurant.
So that is Bruce Blakeman. He's the county executive of Nassau County in New York, and he is also a New York delegate. What I really thought was interesting about him, and we've heard from so many people here from out of state this week, is that sense that they've really gotten us a taste of Wisconsin nice. They say it's real. We
have heard that a lot, and of course it's nice to hear that they said they would like to come back, because that was one of the long-term goals of having the convention here, was kind of reminding people of what a great place Milwaukee is and hoping they'll come for return visits.
And it's actually one of the things that Mayor Cavalier Johnson has said he has been hearing is the number of people who are here from out of state saying, I want to come back with my family, I want to come here just for pleasure. That's exactly what they say this was all about.
And he spoke about hearing J.D. Vance speak last night. We also got the opportunity to speak to someone who knows J.D. Vance rather well. His name is Blake Masters, and he is running for Congress in the state of Arizona, and they go back to their early business days, you could say. Take a listen. We are speaking with Blake Masters, who is running for Congress in Arizona. You're also a friend of J.D. Vance. How do you two know each other?
Met JD 2016, 2017 when I was working for Peter Thiel at the time as a venture capitalist, and then so was JD. for a time before he founded his own venture capital firm. So we met in San Francisco and got to know him, and I'm just so proud of him. He couldn't be a more perfect choice, I think.
Were you brought together by political interests, or what was it that made you guys?
I knew him as a business guy, as a technologist. JD's whole job as a venture capitalist is to think about the future. That's what I'm so excited. This is a future-oriented campaign, right? He wasn't a business analyst who was just looking at historical trends or current happenings. His job was to think about the future and help deploy capital into companies that were going to grow and create new products, new technologies, new jobs. And so I think he's got this incredible business background. So does Trump. But they know that American business needs to work for American workers, right? They know that Main Street is more important in America than Wall Street. And so I think it's just the perfect combination.
I know you're speaking to that business experience. We have spoken with some delegates who say, maybe we were hoping for someone with a more political experience. What would you say to them? Someone who's been in politics longer than maybe JD has.
Did they watch the speech last night? I think JD was vice presidential. I think he did something on that stage that's incredibly hard for politicians. Politicians have been in office 30 years, and they couldn't hope to pull off what JD was able to do, connecting with his audience like that. So I think JD's lack of political experience is a virtue. This is a devoted husband, a father, a businessman, who's a soldier, who's in the Marine Corps. He's got this amazing background. I think in the Senate, in his short time in the Senate, he showed tremendous vision. So no, he's got the political chops. And if you watched the speech last night, you can't help but agree.
We heard some positive things about Usha as well. Do you know her as well? What was your takeaway about how she did?
Yeah, she did great. She did great. And just one of my favorite moments was just, after she'd introduced him and then JD starts walking out, they just have that embrace. And you can imagine, I was tearing up a little bit. It's just, they're in love, they have a beautiful family, they have wonderful kids, and I think we need policymakers like JD in office. She is a dynamo in her own right, and I think she's going to be a fantastic second lady.
Is there anything you could tell us about JD that maybe a lot of people don't know that makes you like him more? One reason why you're his friend, common interests, for example?
JD is this fascinating combination of ferociously intelligent, which you want, but he's also very humble. And in my business career, I've met a lot of smart people, a lot of people smarter than myself, and it's usually the case that the smarter someone is, maybe the more they know it and the more they're not so humble. JD is humble, he is salt of the earth. I think it's why he connects so well. He can be in a boardroom, but then he'd prefer to be, in the bleachers at the Ohio State University watching a football game. So he can connect with everybody, he's humble, he's just a great guy. I don't think Trump could have made a better choice.
I really think what's interesting here is, I want to give a shout out actually. We have an intern who's been with us for the last couple of days, Maya Bell, and as we're sitting on this platform here, there's things going on all around us, and she happened to hear Blake Masters being introduced as JD's friend, or talking about being JD's friend, and she said, hey guys, there's one of JD Vance's friends, you want to go get him? And of course we find out it's somebody who had a business relationship with him. But that's what it's been like all week, is you just look around and find someone, grab someone. Who is that? Let's go talk to him.
We've been reacting a lot to small things that are happening, people who are walking through the area. You never know who you're going to stumble across here. And
one of the people we've stumbled across is really interested in the business impact of this whole convention. When we come back, we're going to talk to Dale Koenga, the president of MMAC. We'll do that right after this. Open Record continues live at the RNC.
And welcome back to Open Record live at the RNC. I'm Jenna Sachs here with Bryan Polcyn, and we have a guest here. We're laughing at our situation a little bit.
Dale Koenga from Milwaukee Metropolitan Association of Commerce is here, and you're leaning back, sitting back for my benefit, because
you guys are you're not short though. I'm just extraordinarily tall. So for your international viewers, I'm 2 meters.
We are grateful for your thoughts.
Yes.
Right, for the sake of this shot, he decided to sit for us. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks
for having me. This is a huge event for the city of Milwaukee, and obviously this has been a long time coming. Day 4. Let's talk about the impact. What are you seeing? What's your experience so far?
How's it going?
Well, Milwaukee is an international brand. That's because the Brewers, the Bucks. But if you look at it from a global level, there are hundreds of cities just in China or just in India that are exponentially larger than Milwaukee. So when we're looking from an economic development standpoint, we're trying to recruit companies like Komatsu or Milwaukee Tool or the new Kinkelman. So it's so helpful for those companies to know Milwaukee and see Milwaukee, and for also sell Milwaukee. So there's definitely an economic impact this week, which is positive, but we're looking at the longer term where people look at Milwaukee and say, that's a place I could live, that's a place I can invest in.
How do you go about measuring that kind of impact? And will we get some firm numbers eventually on how we did?
Yeah, there's different economic indicators. I mean, I think some of this is more softer and over time.
Okay.
But obviously, population growth you want to see over time, the visiting numbers. I know Visit Milwaukee has some great numbers on their bookings, are at an all-time high for future events beyond this. And then economically, one of the big sources of investment in our region has been foreign direct investment. So over time, we'll see foreign direct investment measure that. And our hope is that events like this, raising Milwaukee's profile, will have that positive impact.
What do you tell to the small business owner who's maybe outside this security perimeter, who is expecting more of that immediate impact, and they're going, gosh, we've been dead this week, and we thought there was going to be more out of this, and you say, but long term it's going to be great, and they go, well, I don't know if we have a long term. What do you say?
Well, I mean, I think they do have a long term. What we had this week, we had 80,000 workers that are downtown working out, and a lot of them said, oh, I can't get down, it's so busy because of the security situation. So this is the long-term game. I know that's people like Dana Perina on Fox was saying, the restaurant scene here is amazing. And so there'll be traffic here in the future and go, and I think, but generally speaking, net, this is a positive economic impact for restaurants.
Are you seeing any signs that this strategy is working, that this investment is already paying off? Maybe more people are interested in visiting. I don't know if you have any idea already if it's paying off.
It's paying off, and I'm just like you, I'm walking down the streets here and I'm grabbing people, where are you from, what's your impression? Very, very favorable. The security situation has been remarkable. The protesters, which have been few, have been respectful. Great dialogue, debate. We're out here on the floor. I mean, I got to give kudos to our mayor, Cavalier Johnson. He's clearly a Democrat. Everyone knows that. Our county exec, David Crowley, clearly a Democrat. And they're up there in the box, hanging out with people, listening to speeches, being pleasant. And that's just what we represent as a community, is just coming together. And let me just talk about the biggest impact of this is we got a lot done in Milwaukee for more education funding for schools. We solved the pension crisis with the county and the city. That relationship started because Republicans and Democrats worked together and said, let's have a historic event right here in Milwaukee. And I think we're going to see more political compromises and deals because those relationships exist now and there's good faith on both sides.
People want to know what that economic impact is. They want a number, but how much of this is intangible? How much of this is people all over the country, maybe all over the world going, hey, Milwaukee, they can host a huge event like that. That must be a cool place.
Well, there's a huge intangible. I mean, I could go through the country and say, I give you a country, say, what do you think of? I mean, see Las Vegas, you have something in your mind, right? Or Detroit, you think automobiles. I think Milwaukee, when people think of Milwaukee, they won't go back to, Laverne and Shirley, right? I think they'll think about something like this, or, when we built this stadium, MMBC was a big part of that, among other parties, it was sold not just as a basketball arena. We said this could be an arena for so much more. And so it's really transforming Milwaukee. I mean, we had an event the other day with 70 ambassadors from around the world, and we did it at AmFam Field. And we said, this is the place you want to be if you want to do forward direct investment. And we looked at the Calatrava, the art museum down here, another architectural monument, and the architect of that, who is from Spain, said, only in Milwaukee can this be built. And now we have people from around the world going home and say, this is a place where they have the architects and the engineers and the skill sets to do amazing things, and that story's being told.
Where were people going this week? Because we heard a lot of people saying, I really want to go to the Harley Museum, or saying, I really want to go see the lake or the Calatrava. Where were people going this week?
They were going everywhere. I mean, the Harley Museum has had several events. I know they were at the Art Museum, Discovery World, that event. I know my friend Matt Newman, who's a home builder in Waukesha County, he had a big event at his house out in Lake Country, right? Okay. The Texas delegation is staying in Madison. So there are, if you're going to put pinpoints where everyone was, it's all over not only the city and the county, it's all over the state.
I know we're probably short on time. I want to ask you one more question.
Yeah.
Tonight's the big night for President Trump to give his speech. Former President Trump, candidate Trump, are you going to be in there, and what are you looking forward to hearing?
I will be in there, and I think most of what he's going to say, we probably know what he's going to say. The energy will be ecstatic. I mean, it's going to be high energy. And
do you expect a different President Trump than we might have seen had Saturday not happened?
Yes. I mean, when someone gets shot, as Winston Churchill says, there's nothing more exhilarating than being shot at unsuccessfully. I think that really makes you rethink a lot of things, life outside of politics. And I think we're already seeing a more of a different type of perspective and messaging. So it'll be interesting. I think there will be I'll just tell you, the speech that he had written last week is not the speech you're going to hear tonight.
Dale Koenga, president of MMAC, thank you so much for being here on
Thank you for sitting on a ledge to be here with
yeah,
us
really
today.
appreciate
This is a new strategy for Dale Koenga interviews. There we go.
All right, we will be back with more from Open Record live at the RNC right after this.
And welcome Welcome back to Open Record, live at the RNC. I'm Jenna Sachs here with Bryan Polcyn, and we are joined by a Wisconsin delegate, Brandon Malley here. You are also the GOP of Dane, GOTP chair for Dane County, which is interesting because a lot of people think of that as a liberal county with a lot of student voters. Obviously turnout is important in this upcoming election. Do you have a strategy there? Is that something you're looking into tackling?
Well, most people think of us as a pretty liberal county. We are. We're pretty much the Berkeley of the Midwest. But at the same time, people don't realize that we have the third most Republican votes in the state of Wisconsin. It's really incredible. So for us, the name of the game is getting resources and attention and all of these surrogates that are at this convention in Milwaukee to come out to Dane, Madison, and all of the bedroom communities, because we have a lot of people that are demoralized. I'll give you an example. President Trump goes places where no other Republican goes. I was actually at his rally. I was visiting family in New York in May over the Memorial Day weekend. He went to the South Bronx and he inspired a lot of people there. It was a really diverse crowd, and I was talking to people and they said, you know, a Republican never comes here. They didn't have a Republican since Ronald Reagan compete there. And Ronald Reagan went to the South Bronx and won New York. So we need President Trump and his team to come out to Dane County. That's definitely going to be part of the strategy. But isn't it fantastic to have a convention come to Wisconsin?
Brandon, I have so many questions. First of all, you are 23 years old, is that correct?
24.
24. I'm sorry, okay, 24 years old, but we've been talking a lot about the injection of youth that we're seeing at the convention here. We talked to another Wisconsin delegate earlier this week. The Wisconsin delegation in particular has a lot of youth. And you talked about Madison, obviously home to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. The whole university system obviously plays a big role in the outcome of elections in Wisconsin. How important is it to get youth voters on board, for you to get them on board with President Trump this fall, and how do you do that? How do you make that happen?
Well, it's really incredible. The Wisconsin delegation does have a lot of young delegates and alternates. You've seen a lot of youth enthusiasm injected. I have to give credit to Turning Point Action. We've got Turning Point right across from the Fiserv Forum here. Several of the Wisconsin delegates, including myself, actually have an affiliation with Turning Point.
And that's Charlie Kirk's organization,
That's
right?
Charlie Kirk's organization. So it's been incredible over the last 6 months to see more and more young people get involved in every corner of Wisconsin. Of course, across the UW system, there are many college Republican groups, Turning Point groups. We've worked with them at the county party as much as we can, and really it's all about building a relationship with our young voters. Not just September, October before the election, thinking that they're going to knock on all the doors for us. We've built this relationship out for the last year and a half. We've gotten everything that they've needed on their college campus, and we always support them. We put out press releases, we give them materials, we get them food. Feeding our young people is very important to get them to work for us before the election. But I think it's young people. You see it with the vice presidential choice in J.D. Vance at a time when our country is talking about all of the septuagenarian and the octogenarian politicians and when we're going to pass the torch to the next generation. Actually, I just walked over here from J.D. Vance addressing the Wisconsin delegation. He would actually qualify to be a young Republican. So you need to be from 18 to 40 to qualify to be a young Republican. J.D. Vance is 39. And I think that President Trump likely sees a torchbearer for the MAGA movement in J.D. Vance. So we're very excited for that.
Now, Brandon, you mentioned you have family in New York. I can hear a little bit of an accent in your voice.
How did you get here?
How did you end up in Wisconsin? What is a bit of your story?
Well, I made it to Wisconsin by virtue of Florida, actually. I got a lot of political experience down in Florida. You know, when people in the Northeast don't like the policies up in New York, New Jersey, they go down to Florida, they start voting the right way, and they enjoy all of Florida's freedom and sunshine. I moved up to Wisconsin a few years ago because I knew that this would be the quintessential swing state for the foreseeable future. The state that Florida used to be, and now it's a solid Republican state.
And you went to work for Ron Johnson, is that right?
I went to work for Ron Johnson, absolutely.
Helped him defend his seat in 2022.
Absolutely, he's a phenomenal senator. It was my honor.
So the last question I really have for you here before I think we probably have to go, and that is, you mentioned Turning Point in particular. There were promises made that Turning Point was going to help turn out the youth vote for Donald Trump in 2020, but his youth support actually declined. What's going to be different in 2024? How do you turn that around?
The Army is a lot bigger. Turning Point is hiring hundreds of people on the ground in Wisconsin to chase the vote. And some of the areas are liberal strongholds. We're hiring 15 to 20 people in Dane County alone. Some of them are along the isthmus, where no Republican normally dares to go in terms of door knocking and your nitty-gritty get out the vote. Turning Point is doing it.
Brandon Malley, chairman of the Dane County Republican Party, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me
on. We'll be back on Open Record live at the RNC right after this.
And we are back at Open Record, live at the RNC. Obviously, we are out here by Pfizer Forum. I'm Jenna Sachs, and this is Bryan Polcyn. But earlier today, we were also over at Media Row, where we spent some time today.
That's
over at the Panther Arena.
Right, yeah.
A lot of outlets from across the country are set up there, and it's a good place to find possible interviews. And we interviewed someone over there today.
Sure enough, we saw Congressman Glenn Grothman, who was wandering through doing interviews with radio stations. We pulled him aside and talked a little bit about a number of things, including that assassination attempt on Saturday, and what he thinks about the Secret Service's role in that and more. Let's hear from Congressman Grothman.
Does the pick of J.D. Vance help Donald Trump, hurt him, or will it really not make much difference in the long run?
Well, it certainly helped him last night, right? Anybody who listened to that speech, he reinforced that when Donald Trump makes a decision, Donald Trump looks out for the average guy. And I'll tell you something else about it I like. I like the fact that he picked the best guy he could. You know, it wasn't, I'm going to pick somebody because the political consultants told me. He's going to win Ohio anyway. He did what he said he was going to do. I'm going to pick the guy, if something would happen to me, who would make the best president in the United States. And contrast that to Joe Biden. He picked Kamala Harris. Nobody even pretended that she was the most qualified person. Everybody knows why she got there. Joe Biden said, the best candidate, I'm not going to take that. I'm going to take someone who checks the box. Donald Trump said, I'm going to take the best person I know, which is one of the things I like about him.
Saturday night, Sunday morning, I think everybody wondered, how is the assassination attempt going to change this convention? What will the tone be like? We're on day 4 now. How do you think it's influenced what has happened here and the energy of the convention?
Well, I'll tell you, if that guy was given 10,000 shots, he could have never grazed his ear again. I mean, this was a miracle. That's the way the convention is looking at it, and that's one of the reasons why his popularity, already high among Republicans, is just through the roof right now.
Do you believe there were failures by the Secret Service?
Well, sure. I mean, less than 150 yards away, the guy with a rifle, and as I understand it, people saw him or knew this was going on over 20 minutes before he shot. So what's wrong with the Secret Service? It seems like so many other governmental agencies, it seems to have eroded, apathy. Like I said, maybe more concerned about checking the boxes than making sure we have the best people there.
But what do you think should happen based on that?
Well, I think the head of the Secret Service should go, and we should get commitments from the new head that we are going to hire the best people we possibly can.
There have been suggestions made. J.D. Vance was one of them who made the suggestion that the Biden administration bear some responsibility in this, and that perhaps some of their rhetoric led to this. What do you think of that?
Oh, their rhetoric was just out of control. I mean, Joe Biden leads by rhetoric, right? Wherever he talks, he tries to divide by race. He tries to divide whether union or non-union. I mean, his language towards Donald Trump has just been completely out of control when he talks about the bullseye and that sort of thing. So I think Joe Biden and other Democrats, we call it Trump derangement syndrome, they gin up, if you talk to some of these Democrats, into a hatred we normally don't see in America.
In fairness, does Donald Trump bear some responsibility for that tone, for that rhetoric that's been going on since he became president?
No, you never hear Donald Trump say things this bad. Donald Trump is pugnacious, but he's not near what Joe Biden and even more Joe Biden surrogates are like.
Do you believe Joe Biden will be the opponent in November? And if not, who do you think it will be?
I don't think it'll be Joe Biden. I know who it's going to be. A lot of people are talking about Kamala Harris. And I still don't believe it can be Kamala Harris because of what she did at the border, right? Everybody in their job sometimes is given something to do that they don't want to do, but your boss tells you to do it, you do it. Joe Biden said, Kamala, I want you down on the border. I want you to clean this up. She said, go to hell, Joe, right? So I think given that, it's going to be hard to pick Kamala, but, is it really right that the Democrat candidate is picked and we don't smoke anymore, but smoke-filled rooms behind, not somebody who's withstood the test of time of the Democrat primary process? I don't know. I don't think it's going to be Biden. I think somehow they're going to find a way to get him out of there.
So Congressman Grothman just said there he thinks the director of the Secret Service, Kim Cheadle, should go. He is a member of the House Oversight Committee, and they are going to have the director of the Secret Service in on Monday to answer questions about the assassination attempt, questions about why they didn't have a particular building guarded that allowed the shooter to get up and have that clear shot of the president. So obviously a lot of answers still to come from that, but he's already saying he thinks she ought to go.
And that's been a hot topic within this bubble, right? Within the security perimeter. If you walk around this area, there are a lot of different stages set up, and you hear different speakers being invited to speak to various outlets. And we've heard a lot of them talking about what they consider to be failures in the Secret Service and calling for accountability at the very top. So I would say that's certainly been a hot topic here, and that will be a very eventful day.
One thing I'll say, aside from that, about Congressman Grothman, I mentioned to him that I always see him walking in parades.
Yes.
He doesn't ride in a car. I mean, he's up there too. When we talk about octogenarians and others, he's been around politics for a long time, but he said he walks in about 50 parades a year.
Well, you asked him, you said, I always see you in parades, and when he said 50, my jaw dropped. That is a lot of parades.
I don't
and he
know
made
if that's
a joke
an
about how
exaggeration,
that
but that's an
keeps him
awful
fit.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah, he said that's part of my exercise regimen. That's how he stays
well,
young.
and when we've seen what happens to be, I mean, we saw Rudy Giuliani, the former mayor of New York and President Trump's former lawyer, actually take a fall on the floor of Pfizer Forum. So obviously, doing all that walking, very good for Congressman.
Yes, we saw him in Media Row today as well. He was giving a hug to Marjorie Taylor Greene. So just some of the things that you spot when you're down here on the grounds.
We thought we might get Rudy Giuliani here on the program. Timing didn't work out,
we
didn't have that one. But we did catch up to some of the Trump family today, although that took a little bit of legwork.
Yes, we're getting better at the gaggles, which is the chasing after the people you want to interview. You can check out that when we come back. Welcome back again to Open Record, live at the RNC, and we want to show you what it looks like behind us right now outside of Pfizer Forum. This is something we haven't seen the last few days, not to this extent, the people lining up this early
it's like
to go
there's
inside.
A concert tonight. I suppose in a way there is, but this is the most we've seen in terms of people waiting just to get in, and I think that's because there aren't assigned seats here. I mean, there are by block, like a certain delegation is in this section versus another section, but they all want to get in and get the best seats to see Donald Trump speak tonight, and that's really what I think this is all about.
Right, and we have, more than 2 hours to go until this program begins.
Maybe,
so
I think more than that, maybe 3 or so. But if you go inside, you can see that they're still kind of getting set up. The stage is all there, everything's ready to go for the big event tonight. And I don't know if the shot we have inside sees the ceiling at all or not.
Right.
But there's a whole bunch of balloons ready to fall, obviously. Okay, so you can see that. So there's a whole bunch of balloons ready to fall, obviously, after Trump accepts the nomination. But a huge crowd waiting to get in, and once they get their spots, they're not going to want to give them up, because I think it is going to be somewhat of a zoo inside Pfizer Forum tonight.
And you know, one thing that I found pretty neat to see in person this week is just the theater of it all. Being inside of Pfizer and seeing the stage that was set up, seeing those big screens, how they've decorated the whole arena. Everything is covered in red, white, and blue. Seeing that in person has been very cool this week.
Another thing that's been interesting to see, and it would be, I wish we could show you more of this, but as we're standing around the plaza, we'll just be sitting here kind of waiting to do our next thing or looking for our next interview, and all of a sudden there will be a gaggle of people going by, and you know someone in the center of that is probably important or interesting in some way.
I think the biggest one we saw was the Speaker of the House.
Speaker of the House had a whole bike patrol guarding him.
I hadn't seen anything like that. Bikes, guards all around him. We hadn't seen something quite to that extent. So that was probably the most protection we'd seen.
So earlier in this podcast, Jenna was interviewing Blake Masters, the Arizona candidate for Congress, who's a friend of J.D. Vance. As she's talking to Blake, I see in the background, and I'm shooting this video, I see in the background this gaggle go by, and I realize that's Eric Trump. Well, everybody's talking to him. We should go try to talk to him.
So we weaseled our way over there.
As soon as Jenna wrapped up, we got over there. We weaseled our way in. He talked about a number of things, but one of the things he responded to, I think this is the soundbite we're going to be going to, is he talked specifically about the question of whether or not it would be Joe Biden that his father is going to face this November, which is what voters in the Democratic Party said it should be. That's who all the delegates are committed to, or the most delegates are committed to. But obviously with all the talk now that Joe Biden may in fact drop out, we'll see. He responded to a question about that. Let's take a listen.
I do think that Biden's legacy is going to be largely marred by the fact that, he was forced out by his own party, that he had to drop out. he had to drop out based on incompetency. I don't exactly think that's a good thing for Biden's legacy, and I think he's probably making that calculation in his head right now.
When he says, I think he's making that calculation in his head right now, we don't know for sure what's going to happen. Everything's speculation right now. Barack Obama, former President Obama, has made statements saying that he believes it may be time for President Biden to consider this. So when you have powerful names like that coming out and saying it, it certainly feels like it may be more imminent than it was a few days ago.
And I will say, just from a behind-the-scenes standpoint, that gaggle around Eric Trump got a bit pushy. There was someone who actually fell down at one point.
Who was trying to just get a photo, right?
Right, and Eric Trump, I think he was trying to get out at one point, but the press had completely encircled him. I was kind of moving to the side because I knew he was wrapping it up. But it's amazing to see. We have a smaller version of that here in Milwaukee from time to time, but that was much bigger than anything I've ever experienced before.
And some of those people, like the Eric Trumps, the Donald Trump Jr.'s, the Vivek Ramaswamy, they know that with this many media here, if they stop in one place, everyone's going to surround them, and that's what happens. Eric Trump did stop, and I think he wanted to answer some of those questions, but there was a certain point where they go, I've got to get out of here, I've got places to be.
But that wasn't the only Trump we saw. Or were we going to say the same thing? We saw the Donald Trump Jr. also. He spoke on one of the stages, and we also wanted to ask him some questions. Again, anticipating that there were going to be a number of reporters doing the same thing we were doing. We found out which way he was going to exit and positioned ourselves there, and it paid off.
Last night, his daughter spoke in the convention. He gave up some of his time to let Kai Trump speak, and we were told by our digital team that video was getting a lot of attention on our website. Maybe doing better on our own website than on Fox National, I don't know, but whatever it is, it was a lot of people are interested in Kai Trump, 17 years old. She wasn't scheduled to speak.
And she spoke about her grandpa. She said some compelling things about he gives us soda and candy when our parents aren't looking, which I think a lot of people find relatable. She talked about him teasing her about her golf game.
So when we saw Donald Trump Jr. on a stage right over here, we thought we've got to try to get a word. I wanted to ask him what he thought of watching his daughter give a speech. Of course, he's here watching his dad about to accept the nomination once again for President of the United States. But what about your little girl getting to speak in front of this convention? So we got a little bit of a soundbite from her last night and then her dad's reaction.
When we play golf together, if I'm not on his team, he'll try to get inside of my head. I know. And he's always surprised that I don't let him get to me. But I have to remind him, I'm a Trump too.
Any thoughts on your daughter's performance last night?
I think my daughter absolutely crushed it. I could not be more proud. It's been a proud son and dad week, but for a kid that's never been on a stage before, just called me up on her own, not prompted. It's not like a gimmick. She was like, I feel really strongly about this because I don't think anyone else is going to say it. And after what I saw this weekend, I just want to speak. And I was like, okay, here you go. So I gave her some of my time, and she absolutely crushed it. I was super proud of her.
We talk about gaggles. You saw the end of that is you were shooting the video and I'm trying to keep up, and we ended up stepping over a curb, and there were, I think, there was a
lamppost in my way at one point. And I should point out, I have never been a photojournalist in my career in journalism, so I've been shooting for us this week.
I thought you handled it extremely well.
I tried hard, but I'm smaller, and there were a lot of bigger people, so I know that video was kind of going from the back of your head and other people back to Donald, so I was trying.
I will tell you, all the years as an investigative reporter, one thing I learned that paid off there. So Donald Trump Jr. was on stage over here, and as more and more media saw that he was there doing an interview, Megyn Kelly show, I believe it was.
Yes, it was.
We were waiting for him to come off stage so people could ask questions, and all the media lined up on one side. But I had talked to one of his bodyguards who said, we're going that way.
Right.
And I said, let's go around the other side of the stage because he's going to come that way, and he'll be walking right toward us. And that's how we were able to get that one question in.
And you also did something smart, which was you asked a question that we thought he would want to answer. We thought there are a lot of questions he might walk away from. But when you ask someone about their daughter and how they did, I think any dad would be proud and would want to talk about that. So that was a smart choice too.
Jenna, we just got the 2-minute warning. So we're the last couple of minutes of this week. 4 straight days of doing these live shows here at the RNC. What are the highlights for you? What are you going to remember from this week?
I will remember going into Fiserv Forum for the first time and seeing how it was decorated, seeing the platforms, seeing all of the major media outlets positioned around the arena. That was very cool. I will remember being here outside of Fiserv, seeing all of the different people go by, amazing people watching, and being a part of some of those gaggles as well. What about you?
Well, I think I'm going to remember the immense amount of security. Obviously, being here for an historic moment right after an assassination attempt on a president of the United States, a former president of the United States, running for office once again. To be here and see him arrive, I mean, most conventions, the nominee for president does not show up until day 4. But Donald Trump has been here every day. He's been in, and last night, waiting for J.D. Vance to speak, he came in, and you just, the energy in the room was completely different because there's obviously something added to this moment with him being here just after that attempt on his life.
And we've asked people, what were your highlights from the week? I know people have mentioned J.D. Vance's speech was something they really enjoyed. I know they are really looking forward to hearing Donald Trump tonight. Other people mentioned they really liked Nikki Haley's speech, and they've just liked being with the camaraderie, right? Being with all the people from across the country and sharing their ideas and their hopes, I guess, for their party in the future.
This has been a one-of-a-kind event for the city of Milwaukee and for the greater Milwaukee area. I think this arena wasn't even here a number of years ago. The Bucks have won a championship here, as Governor Walker reminded us yesterday, and now the Republican National Convention has been hosted here as well. What a week, Jenna. It's been a blast.
It has been. It's something we will always remember.
Absolutely. We hope you will stick with us. Open Record live at the RNC. We'll have the best of this week's events this Sunday night on Fox 6 News. With that, I'm Bryan Polcyn. This is Jenna Sachs. We'll see you next time.